Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to Recap and Reacts with me, Sarah. I am back to recap season 4 of Bridgerton, episode 2, Benedict and Sophie season. So let's just jump right in. If you like this video, please like, possibly subscribe to my video. See more videos. Please leave a comment too. If you have anything to say, just leave it down below and I'll get back to you. Let's start a discussion in the chat. All right, so let's just go ahead and get started and jump right on into episode 2, season 4 of Bridgerton. So we open with everyone in Penwood House. It looks like we're taking a step back right before the ball. We're seeing everybody preparing for the ball and getting ready for that. Sophie is accused of trying to sabotage Rosamond's, I guess, costume or outfit. Lady Penwood accuses her of that because she found Rosamond's mask underneath her bed, and Sophie thinks that she was the one who did it. They leave for the ball, and Sophie obviously is at home at the moment. Sophie goes downstairs and complains to her friends who also work for the Penwood house, and we're here introduced to Irma, who's a housekeeper and a cook, I believe, and then we have Footman Alfie. Footman Alfie is teasing with Sophie and is like, oh, it seems like you're jealous. And Sophie says, you know what, in fact, I actually am jealous of Rosamond Posey and Lady Penwood because they get to go to the ball and they're gonna come back and complain about it, and I'm just gonna be stuck here wishing I could go. So then, you know what, they urge her to go. They said you should just go ahead and go. And of course, I think at first Sophie's a little bit in disbelief, but she ultimately decides to go. And so she doesn't know what she's going to wear, but Irma helps her get ready and everything, her hair, makeup. And Alfie goes upstairs to the attic. He comes back down with a silver dress that actually was owned by one of Lord Penwood's sisters. And it is the silver dress, and she already has the mask because I think they were working on a mask for Rosamond because, you know, like I said earlier, Sophie was accused of stealing it, so I guess they were working on another mask for her. So she has a mask, so she's good to go. They just need the shoes, and Alfie actually goes and when he brought down the silver dress, he gets the silver shoes, which Sophie's like, oh my gosh, no. And I think Irma and Sophie are like, no, because Lady Penwood's shoes, essentially. And Sophie says, you know what, she has so many of them, she won't even miss them. So with that, her outfit is complete and she's ready to go to the ball. So there is a sweet moment where Irma tells Sophie that she deserves to go to the ball, she deserves to belong, and she has much as a birthright as Rosamond and Posey does to go to the ball. We come back to present day. So after the ball, I think it's the day after, Lady Penwood notices the silver shoes that Sophie wore, but of course Lady Penwood doesn't know that yet. There's a mark on the silver shoe. And so Lady Penwood actually asks Sophie about it, and she's like, I have no idea. And Lady Penwood is like, you should be noticing things like this. And she apologizes, and Lady Penwood says, clean them. Matter of fact, go ahead and clean all of my shoes, plus Rosamond's, because she has to look great for Benedict. And Sophie is like, it's going to take me months to get all of those shoes done with the rest of my duties. And Lady Penwood says, great, then you'll be an expert. Whew. So I just want to pause right here and just say how great this actress is at playing Lady Penwood. Because I cannot stand her. She is awful. And we are only in episode 2, and this lady is horrendous. She is awful. So kudos to this actress. Let me find out her name really quick. Okay, her name, it seems to be, I apologize if I mispronounce this, it's Katie Leung. Oh, she played Cho Chang in Harry Potter. Oh, okay, this is her. Wow, okay. So yeah, hats off to her. She is great at playing this character because she plays this evil stepmother so awful, or so great, because I can't stand her. But anywho, we go back to after Lady Penwood tells Sophie to clean up all the shoes. We have a flashback to how Lord Penwood, or I guess how Lady Penwood met, or not necessarily met, but when Lady Penwood came to the house and was introduced to Lord Penwood's family. So we have little itty bitty, we have little small Sophie. She's really excited, standing with the staff. She says she's so excited to meet her new stepmother. And she says that if she's marrying my father, she must be kind and loving. Irma and the governess kind of share a concerned look, and Irma bends down and tells Sophie that you can't call your father father. And Sophie asks why, but we don't find out the answer because Lady Penwood comes out of the carriage and she's embraced by Lord Penwood. And then you also see little bitty, I think Rosamond's an infant and Posy's like a little baby, and Posy's crying. So Lord Penwood introduces everyone or the staff to Lady Penwood, and Lady Penwood notices Sophie and she says, "Who is this?" And she seems very nice. And Lord Penwood introduces Sophie as his ward. And we're going to touch on that a little bit later. I'm not going to mention that right now. But when he mentions ward, there is a look of concern on Lady Penwood's face. But he says, basically, he expects her to love her just as if she were her own. And Lady Penwood says, of course, but you can tell she don't like it. And then they just go off. So back to present day. Irma and Footman Alfie, they notice that Sophie's in a bad mood. Alfie teases Sophie again and says, "You're jealous of Rosamond." And Sophie says her and Benedict had a moment at the ball last night and they get really excited for her. But Sophie says, nothing's going to happen anyway because she's a maid. He's, from noble society. So she's like, nothing's going to come of it anyway. And let's not talk about it anymore. And Irma and Alfie are like, okay, girl. So then we cut to a next scene with Queen Charlotte and Lady Danbury. I will be referring to Lady Danbury as Agatha, back and forth because that's a long name, Lady Danbury, Agatha, so I'll be using those interchangeably. They're playing chess and they're talking about the masquerade ball. And then Queen Charlotte is acting like Lady Danbury and her never had a conversation last night about Lady Danbury wanting to leave. So, Queen Charlotte is kind of talking about Benedict and how he was gone for an extended amount of time from the ball. And she says, Lady Danbury, when you throw your ball this season, I hope he's on his best behavior. And Lady Danbury is like, girl, do you not remember the conversation that we had last night? And when that happens, Brimsley comes in with one of her ladies that she has with her at all times. She's actually scared to tell Queen Charlotte, but she's telling, through Brimsley, she tells Queen Charlotte that she wants to be excused from her duties because she's in a delicate position, which means she's pregnant, and she wants to be excused of her duties. And Queen Charlotte says, okay, great. You can be excused of your duties and don't come back. And with that, Brimsley and the lady leave. Then Queen Charlotte, being Queen Charlotte, tells Lady Danbury, can you believe that she made that decision without considering me her queen? And Lady Danbury, this is where it almost seems like the privilege of Queen Charlotte. She's been a queen for I don't know how many years at this point, and she has just kind of lost touch with reality. And Lady Danbury sarcastically kind of says, well, it's so gracious that she has a queen nice enough to excuse her of her duties. So that was a little light shade thrown towards Queen Charlotte. And Queen Charlotte returns serve and says, well, I don't mind being gracious when they are deserving of it. And just kind of looks at Agatha. And I said, oh, that shade with these two. Y'all can tell they've been besties for some years now. because I'm pretty sure no one, and I mean no one, including Brimsley, can never talk to Queen Charlotte that way. With that light shade, Lady Danbury looks at Queen Charlotte and just leaves, and you can tell she's upset. Next scene, we have Eloise and Mama Bridgerton walking. I don't know where they're walking to, but I don't know if it's a promenade, I believe, but they're walking and they end up running into Benedict. And Violet's kind of taken aback and thinks that Benedict looks so nice. And so Benedict says, well, hi, Mom. Eloise, how's it going? I'm just here to chaperone Eloise while, they're walking. And Benedict offers to take her place. And I don't know what Violet was ever going to say, if she was going to rebut that, but behind her, she sees Lord Anderson walking behind Benedict, and she's like, great, go for it. You can chaperone Eloise. And she kind of scurries off and says she has to go talk to a baroness. And Eloise is not buying what Benedict is selling, so she basically asks him what he's really up to. So Benedict basically tells her that he wants her to help him with trying to find the lady from last night, the lady in silver, because he still has her glove. So he asked Eloise, if you help me find this lady, I will help you in trying to get Mama, that's how they say her name, Mama. I will help you have Mama not bother you with matchmaking. And Eloise, of course, agrees. Benedict and Eloise go to Penelope and Colin's house. And Penelope tells Benedict that, well, Colin is eating his way through London with some friends, so he won't be back for a while. And Benedict tells her that he's actually looking for her. And she says, oh. And then Benedict asks for her help in trying to find the lady who lost the glove. And Penelope says, Lady in Silver, who you disappeared with? And Benedict is surprised that she knows. And Penelope says, Lady Whistledown sees everything. And she asks, what do you know about her? And Benedict realizes he doesn't know too much about her. But he wants her to maybe put something in Lady Whistledown in the next issue, to because maybe she'll come, and reveal herself. And Penelope says, well, I don't want to draw too much attention because we weren't the only ones to know that you were gone. And, back in those days, if a lady was unmarried and there was not a chaperone around, it didn't look great. It looked like something untoward was happening. So she's like, it's not really, she probably won't come forward. And also, you're a rake, which is a bad reputation. We don't have much to go with here. Benedict says, well, why don't you just mention me and mention that I'm trying to find someone? And Penelope and Eloise both agree that if there is even a hint of courtship happening or mention, that all of the mamas are going to come around and start sniffing around Benedict. And Benedict says he can handle that. And Pen says the queen will love this. So the next issue, Penelope writes what they discussed in Lady Whistledown, and Rosamond and Lady Penwood are excited, and Alfie tells Sophie that she's talking about her. And Sophie said it can't be her, and she doesn't believe it. Benedict and Eloise start their quest to find this lady after the issue comes out, but they're not successful. And Mama Bridgerton reads the issue of Lady Whistledown. You can tell she's irritated, and all of a sudden you see her read it. And she storms out of her house and she goes to Colin and Penelope's house. And it's so funny because Violet's like, who's this woman that my son is interested in? And Penelope says, Lady Whistledown doesn't tell anything. And Mama Bridgerton says, Penelope Bridgerton, you tell me this instance. And Penelope jumps and she says, yes, ma'am. And so she finds out. So after she gets this information, she goes back to Bridgerton house. And I just also want to note too, because I don't think I noted in the first video, that because Anthony is in India, Benedict, since he's the second son, he is acting as Viscount, so he's taking charge of all the affairs, all the finances of the house. So he is there often to kind of look over things. So after she gets the information from Penelope, Violet goes back to her house, and Benedict's there in the office, and she confronts Benedict. He tells her that he does not have the name of this lady, and that he only has a glove. And Penelope, or excuse me, Violet says, wish you would have came to me earlier, because she grabs the glove, she looks inside the glove, and she sees the family crest of the Penwoods. She's like, I would have told you that you should have started at Lady Penwood's house. Benedict says, well, it's not her. And Violet says, well, there could be other people who stay there, and not just the two daughters. And so, also, so sorry, when Benedict mentions that it's not Rosamond, there's some relief on Violet's face. So if you remember from the last episode, I believe when Lady Penwood, because I don't know if she had a reputation before that, but when Lady Penwood had asked Violet about, does she think that she'll be successful in finding a wife for Benedict that season, Violet did not like that. So now going forward, when Benedict says that Rosamond is not the woman he's looking for, she's probably like, great, because I don't want any ties to that family. So we have a flashback scene again with Sophie when she was a little girl, and she's kind of in the drawing room by herself, and her father comes in, Lord Penwood, and he asks, how come you're not at dance lessons? And she says that Lady Penwood says it's better that she doesn't do dance lessons with Rosamond and Posey. And Lord Penwood kind of makes a face, and he's like, oh, okay, well, I'll have to talk to her about that. So Sophie then asks Lord Penwood about her mother and how did she die. Lord Penwood doesn't answer the question. He just says that she misses her, but she still has her necklace. As long as Lord Penwood is around, he will take care of her. Back to present day, Posey tells Sophie that a suitor is coming to see her, and she's very excited. And so Sophie says, well, if he's coming to see you, we have to tidy up your hair so he'll see how beautiful you are. So Sophie helps Posey, fix herself up, and they're walking down the hallway to the drawing room, and Posey goes in, and the door is kind of closed, but it's ajar, so there's a little crack. And when Sophie's about to go back to, I guess, her quarters, her room, maid quarters, she hears the suitor speaking, and it's Benedict, and she stops in her tracks. And so when she hears Benedict, she goes back and she starts eavesdropping on the conversation. So Posey is telling Benedict about her dream about hands for feet or feet for hands, something. It's different. It's an odd dream. You can tell that Lady Penwood is embarrassed about it, and Rosamond is sitting there disinterested. And Lady Penwood is like, oh, Posey, he doesn't want to hear about your dreams. And Benedict, being the kind man that he is, he's like, in fact, actually, I do want to hear about your dream, because this sounds more interesting than any play that I can ever see. And Sophie, again, she's eavesdropping, and Alfie comes next to her, and she mentions just how kind he is with Posey. And Alfie says, he's looking for you. And she's just like, no, he's not. And Alfie tells her to go into the drawing room. And then she's like, I can't go to the drawing room because Lady Penwood would freak out. But Alfie is urging her, and he's like, listen, you have to go. This is your chance. And for a moment, Sophie thinks about it, but she decides not to. And she says that he's not looking for her. He's looking for the lady in silver, and she does not exist. And with that defeated, Sophie walks back. But as she's walking back, Benedict looks at the crack or through the crack the moment she leaves, which I feel like that's kind of like, I could be just reading too much into things, but I feel that's kind of a soulmate thing. Like they can sense, or he can sense that she's there. I don't know. Or it could just be for drama. I don't know. So back in the drawing room, Benedict asks Posey what her costume was. A disinterested Rosamond says a mermaid. Benedict says she wasn't wearing silver, and Lady Penwood kind of perks up. You can tell the wheels are turning in her head. Posey says no, but Lady Penwood says silver, you say? Benedict says he talked to so many people that night, he doesn't remember what the exact outfit was. But if there are any other women who live on the property, and Lady Penwood says no, this is it. This is all that we need. And Benedict says of course, and kind of just goes back to listening to Posey. When Benedict leaves the Penwood house, they can see him downstairs. So Lady Penwood, Rosamond, and Posey are going to the window, and they can see him down below going to his coach. They don't understand why he came to the house, and they see that he takes out a glove out of his jacket, and Lady Penwood, that's all she needed to see. Rosamond asks, she says, isn't that Mimi's, or she says like a kind of like a name for her grandmother, isn't that her glove? And Lady Penwood has a flashback of the lady in silver running into her, and at this moment that Sophie is found out. Meanwhile, at Lady Danbury's house, Brimsley comes over while Queen Charlotte is sleeping, and he's like, I only have a little bit of time, but please come back over and apologize to Queen Charlotte. And Lady Danbury, of course, is like, what am I apologizing for? Brimsley's like, we know that you did nothing wrong, but she is very sad. She's very upset because Lady Danbury, her only friend's not around. And he's like, he just begs her to come back to the house. And he mentions that her world is shrinking. Of course, with her leaving, and then this is a nod to Queen Charlotte, this Queen Charlotte series. This is a nod to that, where he's like, he's not doing well, he's getting older. Because if we do remember Queen Charlotte, remember Farmer George, King George is not well. And so he's getting worse. And that's what Brimsley's basically saying. And he also mentions that, the maid that says she needs to go because she's in a delicate position, he says, she's not going to hire anybody else because she doesn't want to, because she doesn't want anybody to really know about King George. So Brimsley, before he leaves, says she is struggling without her friend and wants her to think about it. And then he leaves off, and you can tell Lady Danbury is just contemplating. Back at Penwood House, Lady Penwood confronts Sophie. She asks her to try on the silver shoes. And oh my gosh, the way she does it is so disrespectful. She has the shoes in her hands, and Sophie's about to get them, but she just drops them right in front of her. Ugh. So she tries them on and notices that they're a perfect fit. They end up arguing because basically Lady Penwood knows that Sophie was at the ball. And so they argue, and Sophie basically asks, why did you take me in after her father passed away? And Lady Penwood says, do not call him that. So I want to touch on, earlier on the video, I mentioned that Lord Penwood said that Sophie was his ward. So back in those times, a ward, this is according to boardpanda.com, I believe. This was a term used strategically to conceal illegitimate births, protecting her from the stigma of being a commoner's child. Sophie asked, how come you didn't put me on the street? And Lady Penwood doesn't say anything, but there is a shred of humanity in this moment that kind of crosses her face. And Lady Penwood says, perhaps you're right. You're dismissed from your duties here. So basically, she's fired and she will be put out on the streets. And then she says, you need to leave London and I'll make sure that you're never able to get a job here again. And in shock, I think Sophie cries and then she runs off and starts collecting her things. She takes a doll. I do believe she takes her glove, the other glove, and I think that's it. It might have been some other things, but I can't remember. She says goodbye to everyone, including Irma and Alfie. And Irma is just distraught because she blames herself for it, and she never should have told her to go. And, you know, Sophie assures her that no, everything's fine. And then Posey comes down and she hurries and she has something for Sophie, and she's like, we don't know what it is yet, but she gives her this gift and she says, you can sell these, you might not get much, but it's something. And they try to embrace each other, but Rosamund's there and reminds Posey to remember your place. And so they don't hug, but they share a sad smile. And then with that, Sophie leaves. And she's out on the street in front of Penwood House, and she opens the gift that Posey gave her, and they were shoe clips. And Sophie says, oh, Posey, and she turns around because it looks like she's about to go back and give them to her, but she thinks she changes her mind and then leaves. Lady Danbury goes back to Queen Charlotte, and she apologizes to Queen Charlotte. And so Queen Charlotte dismisses the other ladies and they start to play chess. Queen Charlotte asks Lady Danbury why she wants to leave. And Lady Danbury starts to tell her that, you know, she wants to leave and see her home. And she says, no, why do you want to leave me? You cannot go. And Agatha says, you can't tell me to go. Friends don't do that. We're friends. And she says, I'm your queen. I forbid you to go. And Lady Danbury just says, so I'm just one of your subjects? And Queen Charlotte says yes. Lady Danbury stands up in shock with tears in her eyes and says, apologies that I forgot my place. Now, here is another nod to the Queen Charlotte series, because if we remember, when the first episode after George and Charlotte get married, when George kind of goes off on her and he says, I am your king, I have decided I'm your king, and Queen Charlotte says, apologies, I thought you were just George. So that whole part was a nod to Queen Charlotte. So after Lady Danbury says that, you know, she apologizes and that she forgot her position, she starts to leave. And then all of a sudden, Queen Charlotte stands up and she says she's so sorry. And she says she doesn't mean it. I'm sorry. And Lady Danbury comes back and she says, all is well. All is well. And, you know, Queen Charlotte, she comes back towards Queen Charlotte and they embrace. And Queen Charlotte says, you can't leave me. What am I going to do when he dies? Referring to King George. And Queen Charlotte just breaks down. Y'all, excuse me. So Queen Charlotte breaks down, and Lady Danbury and Brimsley share a sad look. And y'all, when I first saw this scene, oh my gosh, I cried. Oh, I thought it was so sad, because if any of y'all, which I'm sure most of us have seen Queen Charlotte, you know, I mentioned in the first video, Queen Charlotte is what got me into Bridgerton. But if we remember Queen Charlotte, the love between King George and Queen Charlotte, so sad, because it was sweet. However, we know that King George was not well. And so, you know, we forget sometimes how icy and how cold Queen Charlotte can be, but she is dealing with a lot. Her husband is deteriorating, and Lady Danbury is probably one of the very few people who know that. So Lady Danbury leaving, that's just like Brimsley said, her circle's getting smaller and she's not going to have anyone soon. So very sad, it's a very sad moment, but I love that moment because you see the friendship, how long they've been friends throughout over the years. So I just loved that scene. So we cut to the next scene. We have Sophie selling her shoe clips that the Posey gave her, and it's not much. And she's like, can I have more? Because I have to get out of London. And the guy, because I guess she's at like, just like the market, and the guy sees her necklace and he says, well, you can give me your necklace, but that'll be worth a pretty penny. But remember that necklace that Sophie's wearing, I don't think I mentioned it earlier, that she wears the current necklace that her father refers to, that she has her mother's necklace. She still wears that to this day. So the guy kind of says, if you sell that, that'll definitely get you some coin. And Sophie says that's not for sale. So the gentleman gives her the money for the shoe clips, and he says, well, maybe you can get on a mail coach. And she thanks him. Back at the Bridgerton house, Eloise is outside on her little swing where her and Benedict meet up all the time. And Benedict asks Eloise if she's upset with him. And because she hasn't talked to her, or she hasn't talked to him. And Eloise confirms that she is in fact upset because they were in the clubhouse of non-marriage. And Benedict's like, I'm not getting married anytime soon. But Eloise is like, but you want to, you're trying to look for this lady in silver. And Eloise kind of feels left out. Benedict says he's not going to get married anytime soon, and he has still not found a lady in silver, and it's probably for the best, because why would anyone want to marry him? And Eloise counters and says, why would anyone not want to marry him? Which I thought was sweet. But Benedict says he knows his reputation, so whatever it is, what it is, and then he leaves. And he also tells Eloise that he'll be back in their club pretty soon because he's probably never going to find this lady. Benedict says he's about to go. Eloise is like, ugh, I know what that means. You're about to get drunk. And then Eloise is like, please don't go. Don't leave me here with my mom. And then Benedict says, you never know. She might surprise you. And I'm assuming when he says that, he's meaning the fact that, Violet had helped him with the glove. So Benedict goes to the club. He's getting drunk. And somehow he ends up, it looks like a day pass because there's like a time lapse that happens. And I don't know how he got to this other place, but apparently he gets up and goes to like a window and he's talking to a friend. I didn't get his name. And he asked the friend where they are, and they were like, and he's like, well, we're at Cavender's countryside estate. So I don't know how Benedict got there or what, but the friend tells Benedict, or Benedict says that he's been trying to drag them there for months anyway. So they're finally there. So they're there, and Benedict mentions that he hasn't seen this particular friend in a while, and he says, oh, well, it's because I'm in love and he's been with his mistress. Please remember that for the future episodes. But the guy is happy because he's able to be with his mistress. So essentially he's having his cake and eat it too. I guess he has a noble wife in society. And then he has a lady on the side who he really loves. But of course, due to society norms, he can't be with that lady. So Benedict, I don't know if he was passed out or throwing up, whatever. He's outside and he's walking around the estate and he hears Cavender with a group of buddies trying to assault one of the maids. And then Sophie is not one of those maids yet, but she helps. She throws water on the men to get them off of the maid they were trying to assault. So then they turn their attention to Sophie and they start messing with her. And then Benedict sees that and rushes over there and he punches Cavender. And Cavender is like, she's just a maid. And he says, so that gives you permission? Just because she's a maid does not give you permission to do what you want with her. And he tells him to apologize to her. And he apologizes, Cavender. And he says, if you do anything like that against any woman, I will see that you will never be in society ever again. I said, you better come on, Benedict. Let's go. His mama raised him right. See, Violet raised him right. So Cavender says, okay, well, don't worry about it, and then dismisses Sophie. So essentially, Benedict saves Sophie and yet gets her fired. After the men leave, Sophie thanks Benedict and says, thank you, Mr. Bridgerton. And whoops, that's a slip, because Benedict says, have we met before? And Sophie says, no, but I heard your name earlier. So she excuses herself, and then they have a flashback. We have another flashback. So we're flashing back to Sophie's life. So this time we're flashback all the way to Sophie's father's funeral. So they're at the burial site. It's just Sophie and Lady Penwood. And Lady Penwood basically tells Sophie that she is not in Lord Penwood's will. And Sophie does not believe that, because remember how Lord Penwood had said that he will take care of her no matter what. So Lady Penwood assures Sophie that no, he didn't leave anything in the will, which I'm pretty sure he did. But yeah, so Sophie just does not believe it. And so this is where we find out. Lady Penwood tells Sophie that, well, you're not really his daughter anyway, because Lord Penwood, I guess, had an affair with Sophie's mother, who was a maid, and therefore she is not worthy of society. So pause here. If we remember in the beginning where I mentioned when Lady Penwood came, and Irma was telling Sophie not to call her father, this is probably why, full circle moment, this is why she said do not call him father, because technically, I guess in those times, if they had an affair with a maid, a woman who was not of society, it didn't count. So I don't know if that also means, I don't know at this point, we don't know that if Lady Penwood wrote Sophie out of the will or did something with the will, or she really doesn't have rights to it, because she was a daughter of a maid as well. But I'm pretty sure Lady Penwood did something with that will. But anyway, Sophie in disbelief, because I don't think she knew that her mother was a maid. I'm not sure, but because she passed away when she was so young, Lady Penwood tells Sophie not to worry about it, because she's going to take care of her and she's going to protect her in this house, have a roof over her head, by Sophie being a maid. So this is how Sophie became a maid. And Lady Penwood essentially just says that this is your destiny because your mother was a maid, and it should be fine just as long as you don't fill your head with dreams like your mother did. Girl, when I tell y'all, Lady Penwood, whoo, my goodness, this lady, she's so good at playing a villain. She's so good. So anyway, so she says all that and then just walks off and leaves Sophie by herself. And Sophie's there just crying distraught because her father just passed away, and this is a lot of information at one time. So we're back to present day. Sophie is walking, and it's nighttime, by the way. I don't know if I mentioned that, but it is nighttime. They're at the Cavender's estate because Cavender is having a party, a house party. I didn't mention this earlier, but Cavender, it seems like he's having a house party because his parents are away. And it's getting rowdy in there, and Sophie is about to walk down the road, and Benedict is like, where are you going? And she's like, I gotta start walking because I don't have a job anymore, and it's several hours until the next town. And Benedict is like, he looks down the street and he's like, you want to go out in that by yourself? Which it does look creepy because it looks like it's like all woods, and there's no civilization around because it's the countryside. And so Benedict offers to take Sophie with him, and she, at first I think she refuses, but then, like I said, it's getting rowdy back at the Cavender house, and she decides to go with him. Also, but before she also agrees with him, she is upset with Benedict. She expresses her anger towards Benedict that he cost her job, which I mean, I get it. I mean, he was trying to defend her though, but I also get how she's frustrated. But anyway, she expresses her anger to Benedict because, you know, Lady Penwood said that she is not going to let her work in London at all. And it's probably really hard for her to find this job, so let alone trying to find another one. And Benedict says that he'll help her. And she's like, you can't help me. And he's like, he has his ways. I mean, Bridgerton family is that family. So I'm pretty sure whatever happens or whatever Benedict says, it can happen. So he says he'll get her something. Don't worry about it. So like I said, when she hears the ruckus, she reluctantly goes with Benedict. And while Benedict is helping her into the coach, he grabs her hand, and when they touch hands, Benedict says, "Are you sure we don't know each other?" Eek! And Sophie says, "No." And so they both ride off from the Cavender house together. That is how the episode ends. So this is episode 2. I loved this episode. We're getting some traction. I was hooked in on this whole episode. I enjoy, like I said, I have enjoyed these first 4 episodes of Bridgerton. The second part did already come out, so I haven't watched the second part yet. And I don't know if I'm going to watch it before I start videotaping, or if I'm just gonna watch it, you know, as I go. So I've only watched the first 4 episodes. So when I watch the 5th episode and probably do a video about it, that will be like the first or second time, or excuse me, that'll probably be the first time. I'm not gonna watch the second half all at one time, basically is what I'm trying to say. My goodness. Anywho, so yeah, I'm excited for the second part. I don't want any spoilers because I might just give in because I'm so afraid stuff is going to be spoiled. I don't want it to be spoiled. But because I really think this is a good season, and my friend had told me she has enjoyed it. So I'm excited. But yes, that was episode 2. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate you watching. Yeah, so I'll have episode 3 out hopefully this week. I'm trying to get this cadence because y'all know I'm jumping back into this. So please like this video if you like. Please share your comments and we can have a discussion in the chat. Other people can chat, I think. And so yeah, we can have a discussion. And so thank you so much for stopping by. Please subscribe to my channel if you get a moment. And I will see you next time. Bye.